The first time I realized I might actually have to fight a homeowners association, I was standing in my kitchen in slippers, holding a welcome packet that said I owed $685 in dues to an HOA I wasn't even in. I laughed, like full-on laughed, because who does that? Turns out, the kind of people who eventually park concrete barricades in front of your only road out, fly drones over your backyard, and try to annex your home with a document that reads like legal fanfiction. My name's Michael Vale. I'm 39, I build systems for a living, mostly remote work, mostly quiet, because quiet is the whole point. In late October, I moved into what I thought was my clean little dream setup in Pine Hollow, out in that Pacific Northwest kind of gray where the air smells like wet cedar and everybody acts like they're emotionally allergic to direct confrontation. The house was on the far northeastern edge of the development, tucked behind a belt of trees, with a narrow private access road that winds past an old creek bed and spills out onto Hillrest Lane. Peaceful. A little rugged. Perfect. And the detail that mattered most, like the detail I triple-checked until I annoyed my realtor, was that my parcel was outside the Pine Hollow HOA boundary. Not sort of. Not it depends. Outside. I paid extra for an independent title search. I hired a lawyer to review the county maps. I read plat overlays like bedtime stories. I did everything you do when you've seen enough bureaucratic nonsense in life to know it doesn't always stay in its lane. For the first couple weeks, it stayed in its lane. I unpacked, upgraded the router, rewired my home office, pressure-washed the siding, finally installed the weather station I'd wanted for years. I even put in solar lighting along the fence line. Nothing dramatic, just enough to keep raccoons from jump-scaring me at 2 a.m. No knocks on the door. No neighbors. No drama. Which is again the point. Then the mail showed up. It was a thick envelope, official-looking, stamped with this gold emblem that said Pine Hollow Homeowners Association, like it was the seal of a small, petty kingdom. I opened it expecting a mistake or marketing junk. Inside was the whole bundle, rules, regulations, community expectations, and a letter from someone named Karen West, president of the Pine Hollow HOA, welcoming me as a new member and kindly reminding me my first monthly dues of $685 were already overdue. I laughed again, out loud, alone in my kitchen with a cold coffee, feeling like I'd just caught the universe in a dumb little clerical hiccup. So I emailed the address in the packet. Polite, direct, legally armed. I told them I was not a member. My property was outside their jurisdiction. Please update your records and cease contact. I attached my deed, parcel ID, county record, and a letter from my attorney that might as well have been a laminated slap. 3 days later, I got a second letter. This one wasn't mailed. No posti. Somebody walked it over and slipped it into my mailbox like a threat in a polite font. Same emblem. Different tone. It said I was in breach of Article 5, Section 2B, non-cooperation and delayed membership enrollment, and I had 5 business days to sign and return the HOA covenant to avoid compliance intervention. I read it twice, then a third time, out loud, because part of my brain refused to accept I was seeing what I was seeing. It was so absurd I genuinely wondered if it was a scam, some local grift where people print official-looking papers and hope you panic pay. But it was signed again by Karen West, her name underlined like she was proud of it, and her title now read, President, HOA Compliance Oversight Committee. Which I'm sorry, who the hell has a committee for oversight of oversight? That's not governance. That's cosplay. The next morning around 10, 2 guys show up at the entrance to my private drive. Reflective vests, block letters, HOA Compliance Unit. One had a clipboard. The other had a phone mounted on a gimbal, filming like I was about to confess to a crime. I walk out, coffee in hand, still in slippers, and I'm looking at them thinking, this can't be real. Clipboard guy goes, "Good morning, sir. We're with the Pine Hollow HOA. We're here to issue an on-site notification of required compliance. We need you to sign the standard membership covenant today and acknowledge the standing regulations." I blinked. "You're not serious." He didn't flinch. "Failure to respond appropriately may result in disciplinary assessment under conditional annexation protocol." Conditional annexation. He said it like it was a normal thing you say to another adult on a Tuesday. I told them, slowly, clearly, this is private property. I'm not in your HOA. I already sent legal documentation, and they have exactly 15 seconds to get off my land before I call the cops. Gimbal guy zoomed in on my face like he was filming a documentary about a stubborn zoo animal. Clipboard guy didn't move until I started dialing. Then they left slowly, like they were disappointed I wasn't begging to be assimilated into their little clipboard cult. By the end of the day, my attorney sent a certified letter reaffirming everything: parcel maps, precedents, and a not-so-subtle warning about harassment. I figured that would end it. It didn't end it. It escalated. The next morning, I noticed the silence. Not peaceful silence. Wrong silence. The kind you feel in your body before your brain even catches up. I was halfway through frying eggs when it hit me. My smart gate hadn't pinged once. No raccoons. No delivery vans. No motion alerts. Nothing. So I pull up my camera feed, and there it is. 2 massive concrete barriers placed across the narrow private drive connecting my house to the main road, like a military checkpoint built by a landscaping committee. And parked just off the road was a white panel van facing my gate like it was standing guard. On the side, Pine Hollow HOA compliance mobile unit. I stood on my porch staring at it, trying to decide if I was being punked, or if I'd quietly moved into the first HOA-run micro-dictatorship in American history. Then I see them again, clipboard guy and gimbal guy, standing there in their vests like traffic cops at a cult gathering. Clipboard guy goes, "Good morning, Mr. Vale. We're here to enforce Interim Directive PH 11B. Your property has been temporarily designated as a zone under compliance review." I actually laughed, because if I didn't laugh I was going to start throwing things. "You've officially lost your damn minds." He kept reading like a script. "Until your status is resolved and your membership documents are signed and returned, movement beyond the boundary of your dwelling will be considered non-compliant and subject to assessment." Assessment of what? I snapped. "You people have no legal claim over me or my land. You are trespassing." Gimbal guy zoomed in again, and my middle finger rose like it was drawn by gravity. I called the sheriff. 2 deputies show up 20 minutes later, both young, both wearing the expression of men who already knew this was going to be annoying paperwork. I explained everything: letters, fake dues, unsolicited visits, and now the literal blockade outside my home. Clipboard guy hands them a packet of papers like he's done this before. One deputy flips through it and goes, "What exactly is this?" Clipboard guy says, "Temporary directive issued by the HOA board. Standard protocol for disputed lots. Mr. Vale's property crosses a shared-use easement connected to a service road maintained by the HOA." I cut in. "That's a lie. It's a private road. My deed shows it. I pay for maintenance myself." The deputy gives me a look that said, "I believe you, but I do not want to be here all day." Then he hits me with the line that should be carved into a tombstone for the American legal system. "Sir, this appears to be a civil matter." I stared at him. "Are you telling me I can't leave my house right now?" He shrugs, polite and helpless. "We can't force them to move those blocks. You'll need to pursue this through the courts." I swear to God, that's how I became unofficially under house arrest in America, in the year 2025, because a woman named Karen decided my driveway offended her sense of authority. I spent the next day calling the county and getting transferred like a hot potato. One department told me, "If it's not on public land, it's private." Another said, "If you're not part of the HOA, it's not our jurisdiction." But then the twisted little catch was if I were part of the HOA, suddenly it would be their jurisdiction. It was a bureaucratic snake eating its own tail, and I was trapped in the middle watching it happen in real time. Around noon, this older guy in a bucket hat walks up from the tree line. Doesn't introduce himself, just hands me a folded paper and says, "You live up on the ridge?" I nod. He goes, "Thought you should see this." It's a flyer. Bold headline: "New resident refuses community integration, undermining safety and order." Underneath is a stock photo of a man who vaguely resembles me, generic enough for plausible deniability. It accuses me of ignoring legal obligations, threatening public safety through noncompliance, and basically paints me as the neighborhood villain. At the bottom, the HOA seal and a phone number for concerns. My jaw clenched so hard I heard it click. That's when I stopped asking my lawyer for advice and started asking for war, legal war, the kind you win with paper cuts and receipts. Because you don't realize how much you rely on simply being able to leave your house until someone blocks your only exit and calls it community order. By day 3, I was documenting everything. Every shift change. Every time their van idled at the road. Every time clipboard guy stood there nodding like he was doing God's work. I installed 2 new exterior cameras, set up cloud backups, and created a folder titled Evidence, Hostile HOA activities like I was building a case against a cartel, not a suburban board of volunteers. But cameras weren't enough. These people weren't acting like harmless retirees arguing about lawn height. They were organized, methodical, like they'd practiced. So I called Sam. Sam Connor, technically Samuel T. Connor, Private Investigations. But he's an old college friend who turned his life into tailing cheating spouses and catching insurance fraud. He's sharp, old school, paranoid in the useful way. I tell him the story and he goes, "You had me at clipboard cult." Sam starts digging county records, zoning overlays, parcel maps. 2 days later he calls me and says, "Okay, here's something. 2 years ago, the HOA filed a map amendment application that included your lot." My stomach drops. "It got approved?" "No," he says, and I can hear him smiling. "It got rejected. Lack of neighbor consent, boundary inconsistencies. But inside the HOA's internal documents, you're still on their map." I go quiet. "How?" He says a phrase that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "They're running dual paperwork. One set for the county. Another set they enforce internally, like a shadow charter. And that doesn't happen unless someone inside the system is helping them." And then Sam drops the twist that turns my annoyance into something colder. "One name keeps popping up in the amendment rejection," he says. "Daniel West, county GIS technician." West. Same last name as Karen. I'm sitting there staring at my kitchen wall like it's about to start talking. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," Sam says. "And Karen?" Public records show she used to be a municipal compliance officer in a neighboring county. She got fired for abuse of authority and policy manipulation. Quiet separation. No charges. 2 months later, she moves into Pine Hollow and becomes HOA president. So that's what this was. Not a misunderstanding. Not a clerical mistake. It was a land grab dressed up as community standards, powered by intimidation and just enough fake legal language to scare people into surrendering. And sure enough, things got worse. My Wi-Fi starts spiking, dropping out. I check my service box and find a bright orange tag taped over it that says "Service under investigation," except the HOA has nothing to do with my line. I call the provider and they tell me the line is active, but it was physically disconnected at the pole by an external work order with no record of who requested it. Now I'm trapped, blocked, and offline, which is hilarious because my entire job is literally remote. Then a drone shows up, buzzes over my fence, hovers by my back porch like it's sightseeing, then disappears behind the trees. I pull the footage, zoom in, and on the side of the drone, barely visible, are the words, "Pine Hollow Compliance Unit, Aerial Division." I just stared at the screen and whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." That's the moment something in me flipped. Not into rage, rage is messy, but into clarity. They wanted me tired, isolated, confused. They wanted me to believe this was bigger than me and not worth fighting. Because their whole system runs on one thing: people giving up. So I built a counterweight. My attorney, Rebecca, stone-cold real estate litigator, zero patience for petty tyrants, gets on the phone with me and I say, "I want to create my own HOA." There's a pause. "You want a what?" "Not for control," I say. "For defense." An association of non-HOA owners around Pine Hollow. A legal shield. And Rebecca, after a beat, goes, "That is the most unhinged and legally brilliant thing I've heard this year. Let's do it." By the end of the day, we incorporated the Pine Hollow Free Owners Association. Nonprofit. Mission statement: protect the autonomy, rights, and property boundaries of non-HOA homeowners around Pine Hollow. Sam found 3 other owners who'd gotten similar letters before, 2 retired vets, 1 quiet software guy like me. They didn't sign. They got harassed anyway. And now they were done being polite about it. We held a virtual meeting that night. No smiles, just that shared look people get when they remember they still have spines. By Friday we had a website, an email list, and one clear plan. File a collective lawsuit for unlawful interference, trespassing, defamation, and attempted annexation without due process. And the effect was immediate. Karen sent me another envelope, red emblem this time, warning me to cease efforts to destabilize community order and accusing us of impersonating governance structures, which, coming from the woman running drones and concrete barricades, was rich enough to pour over pancakes. Rebecca filed for injunctive relief. We filed complaints with state authorities. And I, quietly at first, fed the story to a local journalist I knew from college. She published it under a title that made me laugh despite everything: the invisible fence war. It hit online and caught fire. People were memeing it like crazy. Dude started his own HOA to fight the HOA. Empire strikes back, but with deeds. All that. I wasn't chasing fame, but attention has this funny way of turning cocky bullies into nervous liars, because bullies thrive in the dark. Karen tried to retaliate with a new governance charter, 78 pages of glossy nonsense that basically claimed any property that indirectly touches HOA infrastructure is subject to soft jurisdiction authority. It looked official enough that a normal person might panic, and complicated enough that you'd assume it must be real. Rebecca called it the nuclear bluff, a shadow charter designed to become real through precedent and compliance, because if nobody challenges fiction, it hardens into policy. And then the real-world pressure finally hit them. One Tuesday morning, I see clipboard guy at the end of my drive, but he looks different. No clipboard. Hands empty. Sweaty. Nervous. A shark without teeth. Then a black SUV pulls up. Not the HOA van. Government plates. Two men step out in navy jackets, one holding a leather folder thick with documents, the other holding a tablet. Clipboard guy goes pale like someone just turned off his life support. One of the men looks up and says, "Michael Vale?" "That's me," I say, and my voice comes out calmer than I feel. He goes, "We're with the U.S. Marshals Service. We have a warrant for the arrest of Karen West on multiple counts including fraud, false imprisonment, abuse of regulatory authority, and attempted unlawful annexation." I just blinked at him. "Say that again slower." He did. And, God help me, I smiled. More vehicles arrived. Karen got arrested at her house, still in her robe, apparently shouting something about community betrayal, and they don't understand the vision. 2 board members went down too. The survey guy with the briefcase. The treasurer. They seized files from the HOA clubhouse, including the shadow charter and a shadow ledger tracking money collected from soft jurisdiction targets, payments that weren't in the official HOA budget. And the sweetest part? They uncovered communications between Karen and her brother Daniel West, the county GIS tech, about manipulating parcel overlays to make it look like lots like mine were inside the HOA boundary when they weren't. Emails with phrases like soft integration targets, jurisdiction persuasion strategy, and my personal favorite, unnoticed annexation. They literally tried to legally disappear me from my own property. By noon, county workers showed up with a front loader, demolished the concrete barriers, and hauled off the fake signage. One worker lifted a broken chunk of concrete over his head and yelled, "Freedom!" like we were storming a castle, and honestly it felt like it. After weeks of scanning tree lines for drones and checking my driveway like a prison yard, I walked down the road, and the air felt different, lighter, like my body finally remembered what normal felt like. My house was mine again, not just on paper but in my bones. And here's the thing that stuck with me after all the court filings and headlines and memes, because yeah, we won, and we won hard, and the HOA got dissolved, and we got restitution. And the judge basically called their charter an elaborate pseudo-legal cosplay designed to simulate authority without foundation, but the real lesson wasn't always lawyer up. Even though, trust me, lawyer up. The real lesson was uglier and simpler. Power doesn't always show up wearing a badge. Sometimes it shows up wearing a reflective vest and carrying a clipboard, smiling while it asks you to sign your rights away for the good of the community. And if you're tired or busy, or you just want peace badly enough, it's scary how easy it is to hand them what they want, because fighting back costs time, money, energy, and bullies count on you valuing your quiet more than your boundaries. The irony is, I didn't want power. I wanted silence. I wanted space. I wanted to exist without a contract stapled to my lawn. Funny how sometimes, to get peace, you have to burn down a little empire first, legally, patiently, one receipt at a time. These days the cameras still run, but they record raccoons instead of compliance officers. Deer wander through the trees like they own the place. Maybe they do. I fixed the bird feeder the drone knocked over, repainted the porch, replaced my mailbox, and for the first time in a long time, when I check the mail, my chest doesn't tighten like it's bracing for impact. And every now and then, a kid rides by on a bike, slows down and goes, "Hey, aren't you the guy who beat the HOA?" And I'll shrug and say, "Yeah, I guess I am." And he'll ride off popping a wheelie like he just escaped imaginary bureaucrats. So here's my question for you, because I still don't know where I land on it some days. When a private group starts acting like government, inventing rules, enforcing jurisdiction, isolating people with intimidation, where's the line? At what point does community standards become quiet tyranny? And what would you have done? Paid the dues to make it stop, bulldozed the barricades, or taken them to court and risked everything? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you think justice ends and vengeance begins, and if you've ever dealt with an HOA or any kind of petty authority that tried to squeeze you into compliance. I want to hear the stories because if there's one thing I learned from Pine Hollow, it's this. The minute you think this can't happen here is usually the minute it already is.